Okay, babies, we have end behavior and infinity notation. That's what we're going to talk about in this video. It's going to be short and sweet. End behavior just tells me that as x approaches positive infinity or negative infinity, y approaches something too, but not necessarily infinity. Sometimes it is. Okay, so as x approaches positive or negative infinity, y approaches something else. Now what you need to understand about end behavior is that x is always approaching positive or negative infinity. Please understand that. So the best way to do this is to illustrate it for you. So I am going to change my pen here. All right, so if you will look, actually that color's not pretty enough. Okay, so if you will look at this first function, and this should look familiar to you, it is the cubic function, the cubic parent function. So we are going to write the end behavior of the following using infinity notation. Infinity notation just means we're going to use, hey, x is approaching positive or negative infinity, y is approaching whatever value. So that's the notation we're going to use. All right, so if you will look at this, see where the arrows are, that's where your end behavior is occurring. So up here, as x approaches positive infinity, because remember, this is your x-axis and this is the positive direction. And then in response to that, y is going up, so it's also approaching positive infinity. Okay, so let's look at this one down here. So this time, x is approaching negative infinity because the negative values go to the left. And y is responding because it's going down, it's also going to negative infinity. All right, so the next one is a little trickier because if you'll notice, there are two arrows. We've got one up here and one over here, and this piece does as well. This is actually a transformed picture of the parent function of the reciprocal. So this is a transformation of the parent reciprocal function. So let's talk about end behavior, and I'm going to need to get a different color out here. Okay, end behavior only occurs when x is approaching positive and negative infinity. Notice that up here, as this extends, it's not approaching infinity for x. It's approaching this value right here, this asymptotic value. So this is not an end behavior. Down here, the same thing is happening. This x is approaching from the positive direction. It's approaching this asymptote, but that's not end behavior. We will discuss that behavior later, but not right now. So if you're looking at the two end behaviors, where are the two end behaviors, Ms. Griggs? Well, they're right here and right here. So just like before, x is always approaching positive or negative infinity. Well, since it's heading off in this negative direction, x is approaching negative infinity, and y is approaching this value right here on this asymptote, which is, we count up from 0, 1, 2, it's approaching the value of 2. And over here on the right side, x is approaching, it's going this way, so it's approaching positive infinity, and again, y is approaching this horizontal asymptote right here, so y is still approaching 2. Okay, so let's look at our third example. It's a parabola, and we've already talked about the end behavior of a parabola, and since this parabola is opening up, it's going to be the exact same. So as x approaches negative infinity, y approaches positive infinity. As x approaches positive infinity, y approaches positive infinity. Anytime y is doing the same thing for x, you can always write it this way if you want to. X is approaching positive and negative infinity, y is approaching positive infinity. And then, of course, we have our last example here. Note, we've got the same kind of situation we had on example 2. These are not end behavior. So for this one right here, as x approaches negative infinity, y is approaching this time negative 2. And over here, x is approaching positive infinity, y is still approaching that -2. So hopefully end behavior is not too stressful. You just have to pay attention when you have a situation like example 4 or example 2.